Hello, you're watching the Telco as a Platform Summit, part of our year-round DSP Leaders coverage. And it's time now for our live Q&A show. I'm Guy Daniels, and this is the first of two Q&A shows. We have another one for you at the same time tomorrow. It's your chance to ask questions on the transition to a platform-based business model. And as part of today's summit, we featured a panel discussion that looked at how to apply platform economics to telco services. And we discussed the pros and cons of this approach. If you missed the panel, don't worry, we will rebroadcast it straight after this live Q&A program. Or you can watch it anytime on demand. Now, we have already received a number of questions from you, but if you haven't yet sent one in, then please do so now and use the Q&A form on the website. Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me live on the show today are Colin Bannon, who is Chief Technology Officer for BT Business, Sandeep Karkala, who is CTO OSS Business Unit at Rakuten Symphony, Warren Bayek, who is Vice President Technology Office with Wind River, and Fahim Sabir, who is Director of Digital Solutions for Colt Technology Services. Hello everyone, good to see you all again. Well, let's get straight into our first audience question. We've received some terrific questions already for this summit. And the question asks, telecoms operators will never have the software skills, the culture, or the market permission to run a successful platform business. A wholesale business, yes, but a platform business, no. Does the panel agree or disagree? Well, I'm sure you might all want to comment on this one, but Colin, let me come across to you first to see whether you agree with this viewer's question or not.
Well, thanks, Guy. I'm living the dream right now, taking our entire fixed network transformation to a complete new platform. That's ELAN, E-line, Internet, NPLS, converging that onto a platform called Global Fabric. So I have the stars. I disagree. I think it is actually essential for a telco to platformatize for a number of reasons, which I'll explain in a sec. But I do agree that it's not without a lot of challenges and very difficult, because it does require new skills and a culture change. A couple of examples on that is, at a portfolio level, you actually need it's a deeply uncomfortable experience for product managers when they used to own their own stovepipe products and they have to let go. It's almost like owning your own house and moving to an apartment where somebody else owns that apartment building now, and you don't have that control anymore. That's a change. You get a lot of convenience, you get the scale of the apartment block, but you lose the fact that you can paint it the way you want and plant whatever flowers outside, and you have all those sort of controls. So there is a trade-off there. You get great unit economics, you get scaling, and you get to share innovation. But you do need the emphasis on the word sharing, and it's co-innovation at that point. And that is a real benefit for telcos who can't continue to make their stacks more complex. It needs to be radically simpler. It needs to be radically more modular. And the unit economics need to improve, because you can't always necessarily grow the top line. You definitely need to take some of the costs and improve your margins on that, and have a platform that also scales inorganically. In other words, for BT Business, we have a great managed services business and a set of connectivity products that support that. But we want to continue to grow even faster via indirect channels, via wholesale, and also through partners, and also have different ways of providing service, where we build the platform once and that platform serves all the channels, whereas perhaps in the past we used to build a different platform for every channel.
Great, thanks very much, Colin. Well, we're showing that it can be done. As you say, there are challenges there, but it can be done. And Fahim, I'm going to come across to you next. I guess the question also asks, can telcos make this a successful platform business? We can make it a platform business, but can we be successful at this? Fahim, what do you think?
So yeah, I mean, look, thinking about the question, I don't think this idea that we'll never have is really appropriate. I think that inside a telco, you will always find people, and you will always find culture, and it's more a case of growing that so it spans across the entire organization rather than being in pockets. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Colin 100%. There is a lot of work to do. It's not a natural place. It's not a comfortable place. But you've got to also remember that telcos are also very good at what we do. It's very, very difficult to build a highly distributed architecture the way that telcos have to build one and have to manage one. If it was that easy, everyone else would be doing it, and they're not. It's a very, very specific set of skills. In terms of the culture, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that there is work to do, but I think that it is necessary work. We need to do this in order to survive. And, the success of it, well, the success of it is going to be highly dependent on us. If we try to make it a success, I believe that we will be able to make it a success, but it means that we can't do half a job. We either go all of the way or we don't bother at all.
Oh, that's interesting, Fahim. Thanks very much for that. And as you say, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Let's see if we've got any more comments for this question. Sandeep, did you want to come in with any extra comments on this one?
Yes, just a couple of points. I do agree with what Colin said. I think it's essential for telcos to reskill and upskill themselves to be able to build and manage these platforms. It is a journey, however. And even when you get there, I think it is important from technology innovation point of view to build an ecosystem of technology partners, right? And I see a future where many of these software vendors become technology partners who will collaborate with MNOs when other enterprise companies to kind of innovate and build these platforms together, right?
Thanks very much, Sandeep. And Warren, do you want to add some words as well?
Yeah, I'll jump in, Guy. Thanks. I agree with everything the panelists have said so far. And I just want to add one historical comment that might add some color to this as well, which is, as Sandeep said, never, Fahim, never is a strong word, right? Of course, I think never, that telcos will never be able to do this I completely disagree with that. Now, can we make the cultural changes required? Can we make the technological upskilling challenges? Can we get there? I think telcos have to get there. And the historical part of this is, I've been in this telco space long enough to remember when the innovation in technology, a lot of that happened in the telco space. Frankly, it's the reason I got into the telco space as a career. So to me, it's more of a hearkening back to roots, and it's changing the culture to be less of a, let's squeeze every penny out of the middle so that the bottom line's better. And I do agree with Colin, that's an important part, and telcos are very good at doing that. But the important thing that we have to look for going forward is upskilling to take advantage of this next wave that's about to happen. In fact, it is happening. And I think telcos have to play a part in that if they're going to remain relevant and they're going to remain on the forefront of technology. So I do believe it's possible. I do believe it will be a challenge. I think enough people in the telco space at the executive level are becoming interested in it in a way that will force the cultural changes that we have to have happen.
Great. Thanks very much, Warren, for those comments. And thanks to all our panelists there. A very positive response to that first question. So let's move on and look at some of the other questions we have received. And this question here, should a platform be created under a different brand than the telco's current brand? What are the pros and cons of having a platform business under the existing brand? Well, there's an interesting one. Fahim, are you able to start us off with some thoughts about what approach might be more suitable?
Yeah, I mean, I can give this a go. So I don't believe that there is a right or a wrong answer to this question. It really depends on what you want to do as an organization. And we have, in the market, we've seen telcos take a different approaches whereby they've changed their brand, they've done it under a dedicated brand, or they've done it under their own brand. In Colt's case, we've kept our what we call our on-demand service under the Colt brand, but under a very, very specific product line name. And it really depends on whether or not you believe that your brand carries is able to succeed in this market. Does it have enough weight? Does it have the right reputation for innovation and the such like? And I think that's a super important part of it. The converse of this is using a different brand name. It gives you an opportunity to reinvent yourselves, and that is also an opportunity that some telcos may need to take if they feel that there's an opportunity to build a new reputation in the market, or kind of shed old skin, so to speak.
Thanks very much, Fahim. That's an interesting point there about some telcos may feel the need to reinvent themselves and use this as an opportunity to do so. Sandeep, let's come across to you. What do you think the best approach may be?
I agree with what Fahim said. I mean, platform as an overall architectural approach is inevitable and essential as we see it, right? And at the same time, this cannot be branded in one way. This platform and the strategy should allow operators to innovate at their own pace and implement their own business models, right? So it is going to be a very hybrid strategy. I mean, some may want to standardize and brand it, some may not. But at the same time, as I said, I mean, we do have many framework technology stacks being innovated in an open source community. But the challenge there is how do operators take that and innovate and brand it? It's not going to happen, right? It doesn't allow operators to innovate their own pace. And I think it's going to be a very hybrid strategy. But at the same time, the primary core need is such platform be able to help operators innovate at their own pace.
Great, good points there. Thanks very much, Sandeep, for those. And Warren, let's come across and hear what your response to this question is as well.
Yeah, I think Fahim gave some really good pros and cons, and he's right. There is no right or wrong answer here. I think the danger of not rebranding is telcos do something really, really well, right? They provide cell service, they provide data service, and they're amazing at that. There's a pro and con to that. And the con is that name of each of the providers is synonymous with that connectivity. So to disassociate from just being a connection, just being a pipe provider, to suddenly being a platform service provider, I think there can be a real danger that it will be difficult to get market acceptance using a telco brand, because telcos are known for one thing. And frankly, that will always be the main business of a telco, right? Their main business is always going to be to provide high quality connections. So I think it's important that telcos can evaluate which is the right approach for them. I do think there's a danger in using the telco name and not rebranding at some level. Clearly, this is going to be a partnership play, I think, overall. So having another brand as part of the telco family to be a part of that partnership ecosystem is probably the way this is going to play out. But again, Fahim's right. There's no right or wrong answer here.
No, exactly. Thanks very much for those comments, Warren. It is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I know that question came from a European telco. I'll be interested to see how they rebrand or not in the coming years. Right, let's move on to another viewer question then. And this one's a bit of a long one. Let's read this one out. Integration into an aggregator ecosystem comes at a cost. How much percentage of top-line growth is out there for telcos? And does this number give us an indication of the effort, in terms of CapEx and OpEx, that telcos will be willing to invest? Does it justify an accelerated delivery of this functionality, or is it more likely to come naturally as part of the next generation of RAN and core specifications and products? quite a long question there, but in the middle of that, there's a really interesting nub. Warren, can I come back to you and ask what your thoughts are?
Yeah, sure, guy. Yeah, that is quite a question. I'm not going to try to be omniscient. I can't really talk to the first part of that, which is a percentage prediction. I think, frankly, anyone who tries to do that, it's a fool's errand to try to figure out exactly how much revenue is possible out of the new architecture that's evolving. That said, the other part of the question I think that was really interesting and apropos is that allusion to the next gen 6G, whatever we want to call it, as we work to that fully virtualized far edge solution, the platform as a service will absolutely be in place then. So the question is it worth telco investment now to get to a place where they can recognize revenue, and how do they recognize that revenue? Frankly, they have to do it now or they're going to miss out on the next gen, right? This evolution is already happening. The far edge is becoming, we're adding more and more compute to the far edge. We're adding more and more intelligence to the far edge. We're bringing in millions, if not billions, of connected devices that use that far edge. So the amount of data that's available it's astronomical, right? So the use of that data and the monetization of those devices is happening and will continue to happen. So telcos need to get involved in that ecosystem. And I think Sandeep mentioned it, that this is going to be a partnership play. There's going to be a real important part that telcos play in creating these partnerships to use the data and to use these connected devices that are coming onto the far edge. And they need to do it now in order to play in the next gen where the real revenue is going to happen. Now, I'll give you a quick example of that. At Wind River, our parent company, Aptiv, is very involved in the software-defined vehicle phase. Now, today, a vehicle is a car that drives around, but the truth is, the software-defined vehicle is really no longer a car. It's a rolling data center. So if telcos can have that attitude of how do I use that rolling data center in a way that we can partner with the people who actually can add value to a consumer's use of an automobile over the years, that's a very good example of how the telcos need to start working in this ecosystem partnership now. And I agree, this is not a free adventure for them, right? This is going to be an expensive, not only monetarily, but as we've mentioned, culturally, technologically, upskilling the workforce. But this market is already happening, right? There is already a move to make this far edge, this intelligent far edge, monetized. So if the telcos do not start to take part in this now, frankly, they're going to be in the same position they were when the core became virtualized and they became just a pipe, and other folks made all the real money in the core technology as we brought out cell phones and other devices like that. Telcos really need to look hard and fast at that and how we can partner with people so that telcos can play a part in this future monetization of the far edge. It will happen, it is happening. So they need to get involved today in order to really play a big part in the tsunami of revenue that's going to be coming forward as we continue to virtualize and monetize the far edge.
Thanks very much, Warren. A really clear example there of why telcos should move now and not wait too long, not miss the boat. Fahim, let's come across to you. What's your take on this question?
Well, first of all, I'm looking forward to the tsunami of revenue that's coming based upon Warren's answer. But I mean, Warren made some absolutely fantastic points. The one thing that I wanted to raise is, building a platform is not just a technology exercise. There's, besides the culture, it's all around, the operational processes, the support, and all of these sorts of things. And I'm a strong believer that we need to do this work now, so that we can learn the right lessons, so that when the next generation comes, we are already tooled up to be able to really operate well in this marketplace. So it's not just a case of let's build a platform, but it's also there's a whole sort of barrage, if you like, of organizational process, cultural transformation that needs to happen. And, that needs to start now, because if it doesn't start now, then, ultimately you're going to be starting from day zero, and you're also going to be trying to learn all of the lessons about trying to run a platform while competing in a market where there are lots of platform-based operators that you're competing against. So it's in the telco's own interest to start the journey now, is just to go through the growing pains that you need to go through in order to run a platform business.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Fahim. Yeah, don't get caught flat-footed again, really. This is so important. Good advice. Thanks very much for those comments to that question. I think if there's no more comments, what we'll do is we'll have a look at our audience poll for the Telco as a Platform Summit. And this is something we do for every summit we run. The question we are asking you this week, though, is what are the main benefits to network operators of a telco as a platform strategy? And you can see the real-time votes appearing right here next to me. So everything from down at the bottom there, attracting investors and skilled talent, to current leader by the looks of it, create new enterprise services. Very clear out front at the moment. But these are the results at the moment. If you have yet to vote, please do so. Please do so now. And we'll take a look at the final voting during tomorrow's live Q&A show. Right, we still have time for more of your questions, and here's the next viewer question we've received for this summit. And the question says, I'm having difficulty in seeing how the platform approach differs from the usual telco product and service-based approach. Can you simplify this for me and explain the benefits? Well, it's a good question as well. And hopefully during the course of this summit, we're going to help educate and explain this. But Colin, perhaps I could come across to you for your thoughts and how you can articulate the benefits and the differences of this approach.
Sure, absolutely. Look, this is one of these questions that requires kind of a subjective answer to this. I can only tell you from my sort of lived experience, my view on this. And hopefully my esteemed colleagues can chime in on this. So platform is a telco platform as opposed to so our journey within BT for our fixed network platformatization. In the world that we had, so I'll do sort of from and to. In the world that we had, we would build our products traditionally against some defined use cases, very vertically integrated, and the teams that would work on that product development were specifically aligned just to that one product development, and there was a single product manager, and they were looking at it in just that lens rather than holistically. And what we found was over the years that there was a duplication, particularly as customers started to buy combinations of products or migrate from one product to another. And where we also found is with large, complex customers, that tight integration, the vertical integration of those monolithic products, also there was an additional cost where you would have to break the product apart, and there would be a high amount of custom service wrap and systems integration to make the product work with that customer. And there'd be a sort of regretted amount of custom on there. And as you scale, and remember BT's in like 196 countries providing services to the Fortune 1000, some of the largest, most complex, critical national infrastructures in the world, unnecessary complexity can impact operational resilience. It's an additional risk. It also is a risk to tech debt. And it's also a resistance to innovation and the speed. With AI and other things in the market, we need to be able to create, and the poll just showed, creating new enterprise services is really important. So if you sort of look at that approach, and then APIs were often an afterthought. Product managers would not think about APIs natively when they built their product, you'd probably have a set of APIs for your internal teams console, and you'd have one team building that. And then maybe as an afterthought, you'd have your sort of external monetization APIs bolted on as an afterthought. Now, if you sort of turn that on its head and say, right, nothing is sacred here. First of all, many telcos are trying to digitalize and platformize the edge, but still have core BSS legacy. And that's a halfway house, and that's at least the minimum you need to do. And then there's those out there, sports, who have been a bit more ambitious. Colt is one, BT is another, where we, in our network platforms, we've ripped up the blueprint and the stack and built from scratch a converged, microservices-based, modularized, componentized platform where there are reusable components like security, single sign-on, other BSS components, and BSS components that are reused across all the product areas. So before, if I launched a piece of CPE, I would have to test it against 4 different teams: ELAN, E-line, MPLS Internet, mobile, etc., more. Now we test it once against the platform, and you start to abstract concepts of the platform. So the port and the protocol, the underlay of our network, is now programmable, and we can spin up new services just like a platform. So there's a sort of a cloudification of the telco infrastructure where the product managers define their product as an API in the first instance. And that's a huge cultural change. And what it does is enable a single platform that maximizes return on investment and capital and accelerates how you innovate on top of that platform, and allows multiple channels and monetization capability with this sort of more cloud-like, and you converge the cultures. So it's more of a net, tech, dev, ops, single unified approach, as opposed to armies of people not talking to each other and a overly complicated legacy monolithic stack. Now you have something that is much more agile, but getting there, I don't want to underestimate how hard that is.
Sure. No, thank you very much, Colin, for that explanation. That's great. And Sandeep, will come to you next. And the question that's been asked there is not understanding the differences between the traditional approach and the platform economics approach, and the pros and the cons. So, Sandeep, what are your views?
So I'll try to kind of answer this by approaching in a couple of different ways. One is, I think, we all know and agree that future businesses are going to be enabled with AI. They're going to be run by AI based systems. So AI is all about data, and data cannot be siloed. I think the traditional product and service based systems silo the data. And what happens is, because of that, we lose the unified situational awareness that is required to run AI more efficiently and effectively, right? And the second thing is it's also technological inevitability because of virtualization and disaggregation of the network. Looking at one system doesn't give us a complete oversight into what's happening and to the system, how it is affected by the various external systems and the environment it is running within. So traditional approach of talking to one system or one entity within the network will not help us even manage or monitor these systems. So you having a platform approach where we kind of bring the end-to-end network intelligence and data together is essential to address both these needs, right? So that's one reason the traditional product or service-based approaches will not work for the future.
Great. Thanks very much for those comments, Sandeep. And Fahim, let's come across to you for additional comments.
Thanks, Guy. I mean, I think Colin hit a lot of the right notes, and Sandeep as well. The key element to this, from my point of view, is it's all around that vertical viewpoint. So in the past, it's very much been I want to develop a point-to-point Ethernet service, and therefore it's there for these use cases. It has these sets of constraints. It's basically built to work for this specific reason. Whereas in the platform world, it's very much more of a any to any thinking. So effectively, I can add a component to the platform, and that component is there to basically be used with absolutely every other component in that platform. And what this does is it gives rise to use cases that telcos can't predict. We've always operated on this model whereby we think we know what the customer wants the service for and how they're going to use it. But if I was to give you an example, I'm pretty sure that if you had to ask the cloud providers when they started building their services, is somebody going to build a video streaming service on your platform? They didn't see that coming. All of these solutions, modern day solutions that have been implemented on cloud platforms, are all based upon this whole idea of a componentized anything with anything type environment. And the telco platform operates in very much the same way. So it's kind of this move away from I'm going to sell you a product to I'm going to sell you a component, or a toolbox of components, if you like, that can then be used for absolutely any purpose, because you know your use case, we don't know your use case.
I like that, Fahim. Thanks very much. It's like selling a capability. Warren, let's come across to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Guy. I'm going to kind of jump in on what Fahim said at the end, especially in that the difference to me is creating a toolbox. That's a great way to look at it. And I think it's much as the previous toolboxes of platforms. When Apple developed this thing, they had no idea how it was going to be used. And, as Fahim said, the video streaming, that wasn't on anyone's radar when that pipe was made, right? There are a lot of smart people in this room listening, there's very smart people on this panel, but the collective open source and open API and open use of a platform, if telcos do this right and create a toolbox for anyone to be able to develop and connect devices in ways that we can't imagine, that's the power of creating platform as, this telco platform as a platform. I think it was the second or third answer down. I totally agree with kind of the poll priorities, but the second or third one down was really interesting to me, which is to open an ecosystem to developers and the larger ecosystem players. And that, to me, is the power. When I said a tsunami of revenue, it isn't that, I'm not going to pay any more for connectivity, right? They're milking me for every penny they can today. What I will pay for is interesting new use cases that will help me make my life more easier, that will improve my insurance capabilities, that will do things that I can't do today, right? And I guarantee you, in 5 or 10 years, the world will be entirely different because we've put so much compute at the far edge and we're bringing AI into that equation. And I do want to say it's pretty impressive as a panel that it was 25 minutes in before anybody said AI. So I just wanted to bring that up. But there's no doubt that AI is going to transform the world in a way none of us can imagine. So by creating a platform, by telcos creating a platform, we're really just opening up the possibilities that, frankly, none of us are smart enough to see yet. And that's the important thing to me, is we are just going to open this platform to the broader development environment. And we're going to bring all these hyper-connected devices into the far edge, and we're going to watch the world play out. So telcos need to create that platform, and they need to find a way to get into the ecosystem to take advantage and to be a part of the monetization that's coming.
Thanks very much, Warren. It's quite a change from producing pages and pages of future use cases that will, for 10 years' time, that we're so used to in telecoms that never happen. Fahim, you want to come back in with some additional comments? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Warren made some fantastic points, and the API element of a telco platform, as the world kind of moves towards the concepts around agentic AI, the reality is, agentic AIs work well, or should work well, when they have a fine level of control of the things that they're trying to control. And that's kind of what these platforms actually give you, rather than having this monolithic view towards products and capabilities that basically then cannot be used in that way. So I just wanted to add that.
No, definitely worth adding, and it's something we will have to and certainly want to explore in the months ahead. I would say years ahead, but it's really months ahead. It's moving so fast. Right, thanks very much, everybody. Let's move on to another question that we've received. And this question asks, who within the telco should run a platform-based service? Should it fall to an existing business division, or should a new division be created, or should it operate throughout the telco as a feature set to complement existing offerings? Okay, who takes responsibility? Sandeep, let me come across to you for your comments first.
One of my favorite questions and problem statements, I was dealing with while addressing the overall platform or foundational approach to, at least within OSS telecom operations, how we want to kind of move from a product to a platform or a foundational strategy, right? Because, again, I think I go back to how the future is going to be driven by AI, and AI is all about data. Now, when we talk about data, now it doesn't matter for these AI-based systems and these platforms whether the data and the entity that we're talking about is a network function, an element, or a user, or a business system, or business service, and etc. Right? So, and for AI to be intelligent, then all these data need to come together. And traditionally, the technology was not mature enough to kind of manage data in one place. To establish necessary security guardrails to address both security and data privacy and security and such requirements and regulatory compliances. But we are not there anymore. We have technology and tooling mature enough and easily available to kind of set up these guardrails. Even though data is in one place, you can establish fine-grained access control to these data and make that available to different users, and both operational, business support systems, or even business users. So it can all come together. I think any organization, any business will be successful. Depending on how efficiently and effectively they bring their data together and work through these cultural shifts and organizational silos. And for these silos, technology is not going to be the reason anymore, right? In the future. So, how quickly organization embrace will decide who's going to lead this space in the future.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sandeep. This is certainly an interesting one. And Colin, let's come across to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a kind of linked to one of the previous questions about whether or not you rename it, spin it out. This is sort of the other angle internally. So there's a reason why engineers aren't brand specialists, for one. But I would reflect, I'm not the right person to talk about how you name it. But if I was a brand person, I would reflect on the halo effect of the hundreds of millions that a telco may already spend on branding and marketing, and whether or not this is additive and they can take advantage of the trust that is in the name of that telco brand, or whether or not there's a genuine, because if you have a different brand, you have to spend every dollar or pound or euro you have to spend is in of itself, and it's not taking advantage of the core brand if you do. So that's the sort of thing that brand people sort out internally. Who owns it? I would agree with some of the other speakers on this. Is it's got to be horizontal, and the data needs to drive this. This is not a democracy when it comes to building a platform. The benefits of what you do, it means people will need to give up reinventing the wheel in every product area. And that will require, regardless of whether you put it in a new organization or keep it in your own, it will require centralization, where the architecture team are more empowered for a common architecture and a common platform rather than the individual development teams that were tied into the products previously. So I would say whether you keep it in the same organization, I think I would argue if it stays within the same organization, it needs to be more of a horizontal slice rather than a embedded in each of the product areas. And it's like a layer. And those product areas give up building their own or spinning it out. Either way, I think it's the architectural conformance and the design principles and the culture and the operating model of how you feed those requirements in, and you build it once and you build it right in a really extensible, scalable, driven. And keep in mind, we are, as a telco, when we move to a platform in connectivity, we're going lights out in our exchanges. You know, this is going to be software defined and programmable. And of course, you need really good data for that all the way through without sending a human being in there to touch some of these things. You're not having these concepts of cease and reprovision and people unplugging a cable and plugging it into another rack. So either way, you're going to need bravery, architectural control, and a really strong operating model. How you solve that internally, externally, I think will be based on each company's unique circumstances.
Great, thanks very much, Colin. And as you said earlier, this is quite a challenge. It's quite the task. Thank you very much. And Fahim, let's come across to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, Colin's spot on this. I don't think whether or not it should be a separate business unit or the same business unit is really quite the right question to ask. I think the more important question to ask is actually, how does that business unit operate? And if it is the same business units, the existing business units, then they need to transform. You know, the level of collaboration. I mean, the most interesting thing about developing a platform is the amount of collaboration that kind of starts to happen between, you know, the commercial folks and, you know, the people that are much more at the engineering end of the spectrum needs to become a lot tighter, because platforms by their definition are very technical things. You know, so one of the things that you need to do is, you know, you need to kind of break down the silos and says, you know, I'm engineering and I don't really care about customers. You know, I'm sales and I need to sell stuff, and, you know, engineering needs to deliver for me. And instead of that, it needs to be a case of, well, actually there is one organization, and, you know, we need to rethink from a process point of view, all the way from cradle to grave. You know, how do you sell stuff? You know, how do you provision customers? How do you deliver components? How do you engineer things? How do you get them to work together? And basically, all of these things need to be reconsidered. So, you know, it's I guess, if you create a new business division, then you can actually, you know, set it up to work that way. But the reality is, you know, one of the things that you've got to be careful to do is not to have a new world organization and an old world organization, because, you know, from a personnel point of view, that can be quite negative for an organization. So, you know, my personal view is, you know, regardless of how you set it up, first of all, you need to make sure it works the right way. And secondly, you know, you need to bring the people onto that journey so that basically it does basically become how your organization works.
Great. Thanks very much, Vim. Well, thanks everyone for those comments. And we've just about got time for one quick final question. So let's just read this one out here. Panelists, this is during the panel that was shown before this live show. Panelists mentioned the importance of clean and high quality data. How do telcos' data architectures need to change to enable near real-time access to data? Well, Sandeep, let me come across to you, because I think you probably got some good thoughts on this one.
Yes. So thank you, Guy. So this is one of the supporting arguments for the platform-based approach, and we touched upon this earlier, and other panelists too, right? What I think first approach is to kind of, you know, to bring the data together. To be able to bring the data together, you need to move away from traditional siloed approaches, you know, of, you know, ensuring that data is available to this platform from the source directly, right? Minimize data movement. This is essential to also kind of reduce the data cost. because we're talking about a large, high volume and high throughput data that these future systems will have to deal with. So, you need to bridge that gap, remove data hops and data silos. You cannot move the data from your, the business or network systems to an IT system, and from there to OSS and a BSS and other business systems and BA intelligence systems, right? So you cannot, data cannot move through disparate systems and with costly handoffs. That cannot happen. So one is to establish this overall foundational approach, a platform that has the capability to ingest data directly from the source in the most efficient manner. That's the first and foremost thing. And at the same time, now, when you're talking about a platform approach and talking about large network, being monitored and managed by these platforms, you also need to talk about how you move some of this intelligence to the edge of the network and closer to the source, so you can apply AI and other intelligence techniques to be able to more optimally manage this data. Right? Because, as of today, one of the, when we are an organization tries to embrace AI, they're going to deal with a lot of data. And one of the innovations, that needs to take place is how do you do more with less data, right? And one of the key things for that is to be able to move the data less. So the way it happens is, I think, with respect to O-RAN architecture, we've seen, O-RAN kind of addresses some of these architectural issues with a near real-time system and a non-real-time system. I think that architecture pattern is going to extend. And this is exactly what we do in terms of, how we build our, foundational approach to the next-gen OSS, the way we see it, a platform-based approach. We extend this kind of O-RAN architecture to the end-to-end network, right? So it's not just for RAN intelligent operations and optimization. You can extend the same platform to the end-to-end network, be it any system in your network that you want to manage under this platform. So that's the key. I think the necessary tooling and plumbing is available. As we said, it's more about moving to this platform-based approach and embracing some of these architectures.
Great. Thank you very much, Sandeep, for those views. That was our last question. Unless we've got any additional comments from our guests, then I think we will wrap up the program there. We're out of time, so thank you very much to all of our guests who joined us for this live program. And do remember to send in your questions for tomorrow's live Q&A show as soon as you can. Please don't leave it too late. And do take part in the poll. There's still plenty of time for you to have your say. Well, you can find the full agenda for day 2 of the summit on the TelecomTV website, and it includes a panel discussion on how to maximize the telco API opportunity, where we look at various strategies for achieving success in the API market. Remember, you can watch that together with an interview with Deutsche Telekom on the evolution and exposure of telco network APIs on demand from tomorrow morning. And for our viewers watching live, in case you missed today's earlier panel discussion, we are going to broadcast it in just a few moments, so don't go away. We'll be back tomorrow with our final live Q&A show, same time, same place. So until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.